Hey, it's Kevin DeWitt here. Welcome back to the Mixing in a Home Music Studio course. In this video, we're going to talk about inserts. So firstly, if you're new to my channel and new to my videos and you like what you see, click the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell to be notified of all my future videos. So an insert to me, again, I'm going to keep these fairly high level, most of these topics. So just keep that in mind. I'm trying to give them as very simple explanations as possible so that everybody can grasp the concept. If you want to learn more details about it, then feel free to ask me more questions about it, or go and check out some other resources or check out your manual for your software, that sort of stuff. But an insert to me is, as it describes, it's a place to insert something. So in your software, what usually happens is you'll have your audio file. It is placed on a track, and then somewhere down the track here, you'll have like a fader, pan controls, that sort of stuff. And it will then go out, maybe to some buses, to some processing, that sort of stuff. And then finally, it'll come out your studio monitors or out your headphones. But what can happen is between here and here, so between the audio file and the faders, etc., you can have inserts. So in these inserts, we can put things in there. Generally, they're going to be things like plugins. Could be EQs, could be compressors, could be reverbs, delays, all that sort of stuff. And we're basically inserting it into the track so that the audio then goes through that plugin, gets processed, gets affected, and then comes back out of that insert and plays, as I said, out finally to your studio monitors. That's pretty much the high simple level it is. You can have, depending on your software, you can have tons of slots of inserts. So each of these slots can have a different plugin installed on it that can do a different thing. You can have them assigned as either pre-fader or post-fader. So where I mentioned that there's the audio, here's the fader, and I said the inserts are here, you can actually have the insert go here after the fader. Now there's multiple reasons for that, and it's going to depend on the use of the plugin, but having things pre-fader means that the plugin is affecting the audio file as it is at the level that the audio file was recorded at. The fader that you set in your mixing software will have no impact on what that plugin hears and how that plugin processes that audio file. It will impact the volume after the plugin the audio comes out, but not affect the audio going into the plugin. Now, if you put the plugin post fader, if you reduce that fader, then you reduce the volume of the audio going into the plugin. So that can change how the plugin reacts. If it's a compressor, it will not compress as much if you lower the volume of the fader. Whereas if you use that same compressor pre-fader, changing the fader will have no impact on how much compression that compressor does, because the audio file will not change in volume. It will be the same volume all the time. So let's just get into the software and I'll show you a little bit more about that and show you it in the real world, what it actually looks like in Cubase Pro. I've got a session here. I'm going to open up the mix window and you'll see straight away we've got this section here called inserts. And basically what this is a section where we can insert plugins into our audio chain. So you'll see that every single track or every single bus, every single effects track, anything has an insert section. And generally the way this works is that your audio that is sitting on this track, so in regards to this one here, so we'll use this drum one as an example. If we have a look at drum one here, we have an audio file. So if we sort of think of this like it's a mixing desk, in a big studio or something like that, we have an audio source that, let's say it's on tape. In this regard here, it's sitting on a hard drive on a computer,
and we've placed it on a track and it's going to play. That audio file is then going to go into the insert section. It's going to pass through the insert section, and then it's going to pass through our other sections here. So it's going to go into the fader, into the panner, and eventually it's going to route out to our output. Now we can obviously pass it through to our buses, and we can do sends and that sort of stuff. But in regards to the inserts, we are talking about the audio just playing through the inserts, and it's going from the top through the bottom and then back out again. Now, if I show a different window in this one in regards to Cubase, and this again depends on your DAW. Okay, so in Cubase here, and hopefully you've got similar functionality in your DAW, we have a green line here which we can move around. Now you may not have the ability to move it around, but you may have a section here, and you'll see when I go across it, it comes up as pre or post, and that is dependent on this green line of how many inserts are pre and post. Now, what do they mean by pre and post? Basically, it's pre-fader or post-fader. So it's determining where in the signal chain these inserts are. So in theory, where these plugins will be when we put them on there. Majority of the time, we put our plugins pre-fader. So what that means is that if we look at here, the audio signal is playing. If it's pre-fader, it comes through these plugins, gets processed by the plugins, then it will come down and enter the fader, where the volume will either be turned down or nothing at all, or be turned up, and then it will continue on. So this means that the plugins in the pre-fader section react to the actual raw audio file. So if we look at, say, this one here, this plugin here has a VU meter on it. So if I was to play this drum track, you can see the meter moving, and it's sitting wherever it is, so it's, fluctuating around there. I can turn this fader down so you can't hear it. The meter is staying the same, so this means that the plugin is hearing the audio file before the fader, hence pre-fader. So it responds appropriately. So if this was a compressor, it would compress the signal based on the actual audio source and not be affected by a fader. So we can turn it up, and it does nothing to it. Now, if I was to go and put that in post fader, what that means now is, so our audio signal is playing, it comes through the pre-fader inserts, gets processed by the pre-fader inserts, then it goes to the fader then processes it, so based on our volume we adjust it. It then enters the post fader plugins, and they then process based on after these and after the fader. So if we look at this meter again, now that I've moved it into post, we can see there's no signal there when I turn the fader down. If I turn it up, we can see that it's starting to distort now because I turned the fader up. So it can be useful to put them in post fader, but it's not very common that we do that, but you can if it suits the need. Now, the reason most people don't put them in the post fader is because we're constantly adjusting our fader in our mix and things like that, and having plugins in post fader means that every time we move that fader, we basically change how the plugin works. So if I was to put a compressor down here, so if we were to put a compressor in post fader mode, then it's going to change whether it's compressing or not based on this fader. So let's say, for instance, let's just bypass that for the moment. Let's get our fader where we want it. So let's get some compression going here. Let's compress it fairly heavily. So if we say, okay, I like that. That's the compression I want. That's the amount of compression I want. That's the effect that I want. If I then move this fader, because I've got it in, so if this was in pre-fader, it would be fine. It would stay that way. If we move the fader, it would have no impact at all. So as an example, I will move it into pre-fader. We've still got a compressor. You can see it's compressing, it's hitting there. Doesn't matter whether I turn this down or not. The sound is going to stay the same because it's still compressing exactly the same no matter how loud I have the track. Now if I move this into post fader, well, we've got our volume the same, getting about the same amount of compression. Now if I drop that down, suddenly the audio signal is changing its sound because we're not compressing anymore. There's not enough audio going to this plugin to compress, so it's not compressing. It's about below all the time. Alternatively, if I go louder, we're going to get more compression. We're going to start squashing it. So we're changing the sound of it. So that's the difference between pre and post fader. As I said, most of the time you're going to be working in pre fader, but there may be opportunities to take advantage of this impact by putting it in post fader.
So there you go, that is inserts in your mixing software. Let me know what you think about it. Let me know, does your software have inserts? Do you know how to use them? If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I'm here to help, and I'll help as much as I can. Again, I can't claim to know every piece of software out there, but I can attempt my best to try and find some information for you or help guide as much as I can if your software actually supports it and how it supports it. I read all the comments and I'll answer as many of the comments and questions as quickly as I can. If you did like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell to be notified of all my future videos. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.